Now to an important policy issue that became an inflection point and a standout moment with applause at the Democratic debate.
In Odessa, I met the mother of a 15-year-old girl who was shot by an AR-15, and that mother watched her bleed to death over the course of an hour because so many other people were shot by that AR-15 in Odessa and Midland. There weren't enough ambulances to get to them in time. Hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15, your AK-47. We're not going to allow it to be used against our fellow Americans anymore.
You can hear him almost drowned out in the audience, and that was reflected over last night and today. Look at all of the headlines and interest in a frank proposal to take certain military guns away. This is quite a shift. And we wanted to give some context. Watch how candidate Joe Biden actually touched on a very similar idea in a different debate, a different race, over a decade ago.
This is my baby, purchased under the 1994 gun ban. Please tell me your views.
If that's his baby, he needs help. We should be working with law enforcement right now to make sure that we protect people against people who are not capable of knowing what to do with a gun because they're either mentally imbalanced and/or because they have a criminal record. And anyway,
we got one more question.
Hope he doesn't come looking for me.
Before we do.
I hope he doesn't come looking for me. That was a dark joke then. It's a dark joke now, but it is resonating with a lot of people. Two different candidates, both now in the same race this year, but both saying something over the course of a decade that has only gotten louder, at least in certain parts of the country, which is owners of AR-15s have a responsibility too. O'Rourke saying that actually some of them are getting in on this and saying we've got to make changes. There was, of course, a viral video that went around of a man destroying his own AR-15. This was after the Parkland shooting.
It's a gun like this one that takes away the lives. So I've decided today I'm going to make sure this weapon will never be able to take a life. And people have always said there's so many of them out there. Well, now there's one less.
Former Congressman Steve Israel has been in this fight. He's been calling for much tougher gun restrictions for years.
We are here to remind the American people that Congress is on break and we still do not have a bill protecting Americans from gun safety. We still do not have a no-fly, no-buy bill. We still do not have a bill on enhanced background checks, despite the fact that the overwhelming majority of the American people want us to take this vote, want us to pass these bills.
That was in 2016. He also wrote a satirical book called Big Guns, Engaging the Topic. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you. Had fewer gray hairs back in 2016.
Well, it wasn't that long ago. But
no, it wasn't.
I'll start with that comparison. On the one hand, we've seen the rising tide on the issue. On the other, the Joe Biden sound from 07 is pretty striking because you had a debate where you got submitted questions from the public. You get all kinds of questions. One had somebody waving an AR, and the future vice president at the time was saying, no way, take that away.
Well, that's right. And, you know, I think it's important to remember, Ari, that today actually is the 25th anniversary since we actually had a ban on assault weapons. It was a ban on assault weapons that was signed by President Clinton, supported by Ronald Reagan, supported by Gerald Ford, voted out of the Senate by a vote of 95-4, had broad bipartisan support. And why was that? Why did it happen then and not now? Because at that time, both parties had some common sense. They understood that these weapons are designed to kill a maximum number of people in a minimal amount of time, that they are carried by carefully trained soldiers on the battlefield and shouldn't be carried by deranged lunatics on Main Street. So there was that consensus then. Since then, the NRA has become more powerful. Since then, the issue has become far more polarized. Since then, the gun manufacturers and the lobby have become far more intense. And since then, too many of my former colleagues have become far too afraid to vote for that kind of sensible, common sense gun safety.
Yeah, it says something. This has kind of been a theme throughout today, but it says something that O'Rourke, obviously, who has many candidates noted, of course, dealt with this in his own community with the mass murder there. His breakout moment wasn't about attacking another candidate or Donald Trump directly, although it's related, but was really about, hey, we need to do this. Here he was speaking more about it. Take a look.
It's not voluntary. I want to make sure that we make the distinction here. It is mandatory. It will be the law. You will be required to comply with the law. So, I mean, as with many of our laws, we don't go door to door searching people's homes to see if they are in fact breaking the law. But we expect people to comply with the law.
On the policy, is your view that if you ban this and you take these guns away, fewer people, fewer kids will be murdered each year?
Well, you know, here's where good, sound policy sometimes diverges from good, sound messaging. I have to be honest with you. It is a sound policy to ban assault weapons. I support it. I co-sponsored the bill.
Right. We
vitally need to take these guns off the streets. But here's the political problem. Political problem is how you frame the argument, and it's a nuanced argument. 90% of the American people support universal background checks. 90% of the American people say that if you can't get on an airplane because the federal government says you're too dangerous, you shouldn't be able to get a gun. But when you talk about confiscating weapons, when you talk about having people mandatorily return those weapons, the support drops. And so what Beto has decided to do is really not care all that much about the politics of the argument.
I think what you're alluding to is
policy, and I commend
politically he's decided to say screw it.
That's exactly right, and I commend him for it. I think we've got to just shake this argument up. By the way, the only person that this is really relevant to is Mitch McConnell. The American people want an assault weapons ban. A majority still support it.
Yep.
There's bipartisan support in the House. One person will decide whether this gets a vote. It's Mitch McConnell.
Very important, and you've been on it. Congressman Israel, thank you. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.